Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. Fun, action-packed day for you as usual, especially on Mondays. Someone has announced that they are running for president. It has begun. It has begun. There's already a couple of people out there, and I have interviewed almost all of them already. This is a guy I've also interviewed. If you already know the story, you're like, If you don't, whoa, watch out. Okay, here he comes. That's hint number one. Okay, and there's exciting times at the Young Turks. We're gonna do a whole heap of specials. We're gonna do those for you guys in the next couple of months. I think you will enjoy them, especially as we get to the end of the year. Boom, boom, boom. And we got so many wonderful surprises for you. And by the way, also tomorrow, interesting surprises. I'm not saying you should be checking our YouTube and Facebook pages regularly tomorrow. I'm just saying, okay? Everything's exciting. And Donald Trump's on the ropes. And what he said about the forest and the fires, unbelievable. We'll get to all that. Okay, I'm with you, sister. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you just heard Anna go, which perfectly describes the Trump presidency.
Yeah.
Okay, now, breaking news at the top of the show. Jerome Corsi, a well-known right-winger for a long time, peddles in conspiracy theories, but I already told you he's a right-winger. And unfortunately, the lunatics on their side have a lot of power and effect, and Corsi did as well. I'll tell you about that in a second, the different elections that he affected. But his books are things like, where's the birth certificate? Who really killed Kennedy? Like, it's all questions. He doesn't know, he's just asking, right? And which birth certificate? He doesn't even know that. He's just asking like, well, I don't know what happened, where's the birth certificate? Okay, maybe it's his own, maybe he misplaced it. No, so well-known conspiracy theorist, and but he works with other people that are connected to, in this case, the president. He, from time to time, talks to and is connected to Roger Stone. And it looks like that connection might have gotten him in some trouble, because the news that just came out is that Corsi himself believes he is about to be indicted by Robert Mueller, the special counsel. Oh, that's a shame. I hope they get to it swiftly. Be worried if they rocked your boat with that one. That reference I'll explain in a second. But first, what did he say about it? He said, well, this one's not unclear. I'm going to be indicted. That's what we're told. I'm fully expecting it. According to NBC News, he said that Mueller's team reached out to him last week and said, you might want to get an orange jumpsuit ready. So that indictment apparently is coming. And I love his excuse. So he gives you a sense of what they're going after. But he said, when they have your emails and phone records, they're very good at the perjury trap. No, that means when they have your emails and phone records, they know what you said. That's what it means. Now, whether you committed perjury, well, that's up to you, brother. Okay, there ain't no trap in getting your documents and your phone records. That's you on the phone, that's your emails, right? So they can't make you lie ahead of time and then get your emails and then set a trap. No, they only charge you with perjury if you're clearly lying on the record based on the documents. So it ain't no trap, man. It is what it is. It appears. Oh, having a Clinton opponent go to prison for perjury. Okay, in that case, I mean Bill Clinton, because the guys who argued, oh my God, perjury is the most important thing. Bill Clinton should be impeached, and I don't know, maybe other things, lock them up. Oh well, somebody's getting locked up tonight. Okay. Not gonna happen overnight, obviously. Now, might that mean that they also have Roger Stone? Interesting. So Roger Stone couldn't help himself. So this is a hatchet man for the Republicans. He's been a hatchet man for a long time, and has also known Donald Trump for a long time. They have a deep relationship going back. And Stone bragged about what was coming out in WikiLeaks before it came out.
Because that's what a smart person would do, right? That's what a really smart person would do.
See, that he's an egomaniac and he can't help himself. He wanted to brag. Oh, I know we're about to do a dirty trick. The problem is, now that you got a special counsel, he goes, yeah, oh, that was in public. We all saw it. Okay. Now, by the way, Roger Stone also bragged right before Al Franken news came out that he knew about that too. He said it's Al Franken's turn in the barrel, and so when there is a Republican right-wing smear job that is going to be launched, Roger Stone usually knows about it ahead of time. Now he is not been charged yet. We don't know anything about whether he's going to be indicted or not, but his close ally, Jerome Corsi, who we might have worked with on this particular issue, on whether they knew ahead of time what WikiLeaks had, Corsi is going to be charged. By the way, so the reference that I was making earlier, Corsi in 2004 did another book called Unfit for Command, Swift Boat for Veterans Speak Out Against John Kerry. So he's the guy who launched the Swift Boat controversy against John Kerry. That was also a conspiracy theory, also not true, and unfortunately, also effective. And so, is there any left-wing lunatics in the country? Of course there are, right? But they are a million miles away from power. They're like random dudes walking in the streets, mumbling to themselves, right? The right wing takes those guys and then injects them into the middle of presidential campaigns. And it works. It works because honestly, I think it's because the mainstream media are suckers and they treat the lies and truth as equals. And they go, well, he said, she said. Jerome Corsi made up a giant lie about how John Kerry did not serve honorably in Vietnam, although he's got the medals to prove it, and every single person who served with him said he was absolutely heroic, et cetera, et cetera. And the guy he was running as, George Bush, ran from Vietnam, ran for his life, said he spent a lot of time at the dentist's office while in Vietnam. Okay, so, but the media's like, oh, I don't know, the Republicans said it, I have to call it even. And so it helped to end John Kerry's chances in that race. And so they did it again in the case of Trump versus Hillary Clinton. And doing dirty tricks in politics is not illegal. Perjury is illegal. And so it appears that's what they got him on, and we'll see when that indictment comes down. And I hope it's a harbinger of things to come. If it's accurate, if Roger Stone were next.
That'd be very nice. I would enjoy that. I would enjoy every minute of it.
All I gotta say about that is that the Mueller's team should turn over every stone to see what they got, okay? And if they turn him over, they'll see his Nixon tattoo. He's got it on the small of his back.
Gross, okay.
It's, oh my God, he has a Nixon stamp trap.
Tramp stamp.
Tramp stamp, either way.
Close, yeah.
Okay.
All right, I don't really have much to say about this story other than, for some reason, right-wing lunatics have a much easier time publishing anything.
Oh, I know why. No, Regnery Publishing published Unfit for Command. They're a right-wing publishing house, and they don't care. So that's the difference between the left wing and the right wing. Or they do care. They're like, oh, it's lies. Fantastic. We'll do it, and it doesn't matter if we make money off of it because we got right-wing billionaires who fund it, and they'll just go buy the first stack of the books. That's why they get into the New York Times bestseller list, giving an appearance of popularity when in fact they're completely unpopular. But it gives the mainstream media a hook. They go, well, it's a bestseller. What can I do? I had to cover it and I had to call it even. What do you want me to actually do my job and report on things and figure out if it's true or not true? No, I'll call it even the whole campaign. And after the campaign, when I'll say it's not political, I'll say it was all lies. No. Holding it until after the campaign is political. So anyway, yeah, they do it as a matter of course. If you see a conservative book on the New York Times bestseller list, a great percentage of the time, it's a total fraud. Not all the time. Bill O'Reilly's books are actually popular. We call it as it is, but there's been a great number of scandals with these obscure people popping out, and all of a sudden they're selling like hotcakes. No, they're not. Some right-wing billionaire who wants to put that propaganda into the mainstream media bloodstream. And they do it like a charm every single time. And every single time the media falls for it like suckers because they're afraid they're gonna be called the liberal media, which is also part of the trick.
Right. Well, let's move on to other news because the midterms are not over. There is still a lot of drama ensuing in the state of Florida. I wanna give you the details on that. The state of Florida has called its first ever statewide vote recount, and this is in regard to a number of extremely close races out of the state, and of course that includes Rick Scott, DeSantis, Andrew Gillum, you know some of those details. Let me give you more. Florida began its first full statewide vote recount in its history on Saturday after authorities found that tallies submitted by its 67 counties left the contest for Senate, governor, and agriculture commissioner too close to call. Now, there were some state elections that were also too close to call. Recounts were ordered in the state Senate race and 2 contests for state house. Now, this is the outcome of this will be fascinating, and some of the accusations that we're hearing from Donald Trump, Rick Scott, and others on the right are hilarious. They believe that there is voter fraud going on, even though investigations have already been conducted, which have concluded that there have not been any cases of voter fraud. But nonetheless, each county in Florida will have until Thursday of this week to run all of its ballots through counting machines again. At that point, any race that remains within a margin of 0.25 of a percentage point or less will have another 3 days until November 18th to conduct a manual recount. Now, Governor Rick Scott is claiming that there was voter fraud. In fact, I don't want to put words in his mouth. You should watch what he has to say, and then we'll give you the reality of what's going on.
Every Floridian should be concerned there may be rampant fraud happening in Palm Beach and Broward counties. And the Broward Supervisor of Elections, Brenda Snipes, has a history of acting in absolute bad faith. I will not sit idly by while unethical liberals try to steal this election from the great people of Florida. Every day since the election, the left-wing activists in Broward County have been coming up with more and more ballots out of nowhere. We all know what is going on. Every person in Florida knows exactly what is happening. Their goal is to keep mysteriously finding more votes until the election turns out the way they want.
So he had called for investigations to ensure that there were no cases or no instances of voter fraud. And I want to give you the results of that investigation. Law enforcement authorities got involved in this. Let's go to graphic 11. And they found, quote, "Our staff has seen no evidence of criminal activity at this time." That is a statement from the Department of State.
Who reports to Rick Scott. So now look, the person in charge of Broward County in terms of the voting and the counting there, Brenda C. Snipes, she has been involved in some controversies before, but it was against another Democrat. And so that's why Rick Scott's team ahead of time actually sent 2 monitors down to make sure that the vote in Broward County was on the up and up. And you know what? I think that's a fair precaution. And the monitors reported back there's no fraud at all. Rick Scott knows that, and he knows his own Department of State within Florida knows there's no fraud. He came out and lied on purpose. So that's who Rick Scott is, saying they're coming up with votes from out of nowhere. He also knows that's a lie. What do you mean out of nowhere? You know that a lot of them are mail-in ballots from abroad, and a lot of those are from members of the military. And they have 10 days till after the election for it to arrive. Not for them to vote, but for the mail to arrive, because they might be in Kabul, they might be in Fallujah, okay? So does he not want the military members' votes counted? Is that what Rick Scott is saying? Well, we know that what he's saying is irrelevant because you just saw him lie there with your own eyes. He knows the same evidence that we do. And these guys, they don't care. All they care about is, I wanna win, let's, counting every vote, hell no. No interest in democracy. See, now you can say, well, isn't it both sides? Well, for our purposes, no. I don't know where the Democratic Party stands in Florida or anywhere else. But so a person who took the lead in Arizona late was Kyrsten Sinema. She's a Democrat. So if her margin of victory is within the and the margin that would necessitate a recount, would I tell you, oh no, you shouldn't recount? Hey, Sinema won, I don't care. But military ballots are coming in and it's within the law. No, I don't want the military, it's coming out of nowhere. No, we wouldn't say that, and we're not saying that. If it's within the margin of a recount, they should recount in Arizona. It's a very, very simple concept. Count every vote. Not complicated. If you care about democracy, you would be principled on that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, or whether a Republican or a Democrat is winning. But if you're an unprincipled liar like Rick Scott and Donald Trump, you would care only about what's your advantage. Donald Trump's talking about redoing the Arizona election. What kind of a dictator is this? But no, you don't get to redo elections you lost.
Well, we know.
If you want to do a recount and it's within the margin of a recount, absolutely 100%, right? You want to redo an election? There's no law about that. What are you, insane? And he is. He doesn't care about democracy. None of these goons do.
Right. I mean, just to answer your question, we know what kind of dictator Donald Trump is. He's proven time and time again that he doesn't believe in constitutional protections for the press. He doesn't really believe in our democratic process. And going back to the veterans, not the veterans, our soldiers who are fighting abroad and still taking the time to vote, Trump is also one of the people who has been speaking out against these absentee ballots coming into Florida. And so Trump, for all that he has to say about supporting our troops and supporting our veterans, has demonstrated himself that he actually doesn't care about them. He uses them as props when it's convenient for him, but when push comes to shove and when it comes to our democratic process, he's very willing to brush them off and pretend as if their votes don't matter. Their votes do matter, and they are coming in, and they should be counted. It's amazing how much they cry, right? Because right now, nothing's been called, nothing has been officially called. The only thing that's happening right now is the state of Florida has seen that there have been a number of races that are too close to call, and they're counting the votes. They're recounting to ensure that the right person who the people of Florida voted for gets into office. But they don't want that. They keep trying to cheat. They keep trying to pass so-called voter ID laws, even though there have been no cases of voter fraud, because they know that their ideas are not popular. They draw up districts to their advantage through gerrymandering because they know that their ideas are not popular. They're losers. They're the real losers, and the only way they ever win is through cheating.
So in this case, we've got an automatic recount, right? And so they actually have too little time to do this recount. There was another recount in Broward County back in 2012, and it took 2 days to do, and it had a quarter of the votes. So they should have at least 8 days here. But I don't know why our system is so panicked. What difference would it make if they took 6 days, 8 days, or 10 days? So just count the damn vote. Why do we always create this false pressure for no reason? So in this case, it's gonna go from Saturday at the earliest to Thursday. That's probably not enough time. And if you're wondering, hey, whoa, they're so incompetent in Broward, or it takes too long in the Democratic areas, oh, that seems fishy. No, the places, why do Democrats come from behind? Or now they don't actually come from behind, everybody voted at the same time. It has that appearance because of the count. Why? Because the big cities are more likely to be Democratic, and the big cities have more people in them. So those counties have a lot more votes than the less populous counties in a state. So that's why when Broward, which has Fort Lauderdale in it, comes in later, it's because they have a lot more votes than the other counties. Likely the same situation in Arizona. Now, it doesn't always break that way. Like in Wisconsin, Tony Evers seemed to have a 5-point lead, and his lead came down to 1.2%, but then they counted all the votes and he won anyway. So Scott Walker lost, but it could have gone the other way. And Scott Walker could have come back from behind, and if he had, and they counted all the votes, we'd say that's the result. So here, I'll give you one more instance, and it's from the same exact election. So right now, Rick Scott's lead is down to 12,600 votes in the state of Florida for that Senate seat against Bill Nelson. Now, if it's under 25,000, there's a hand recount, but you don't do the hand recount until you do the automatic recount. Okay, once you do the automated recount, if it's still under 25,000, then you have another couple of days to do a hand recount. Now, they're not gonna hand recount every ballot. What they do is look for undervotes and overvotes, and then they make decisions based on that, right? If after the automatic recount, Bill Nelson takes the lead, but it's still under 25,000, are we gonna turn around and go, nope, that's it, don't do the hand recount, that's in the law, don't do it, because we're now leading? Well, I'm certainly not gonna say that. I don't know any honest progressive who would say that, because we actually care about democracy. So if you're a Republican out there, that's my question to you. Do you care about democracy or don't you? Do you want every vote counted? Do you want our military members' votes counted? Or do you just care about winning and you actually never cared about this country or our system of government?
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, a pretty explosive story regarding Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker. He was involved in a criminal organization, and we have the details on that and more when we return.
I got a lot of comments for you guys. That sounds like I got a lot of strong opinions. I know that's the whole point of the show. No, I mean your comments. So we go to the member section first. I Am Sock writes in, cheaters never prosper was officially debunked in 2016. And then Denise writes in, I'm with you, Anna.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
These people who have the nerve to call the rest of us snowflakes are the ones that immediately melt when heated. Nostra Science says you have to count all the possible votes all the time, not just some of the votes some of the time. Seems logical, but there are many illogical things the Republicans don't agree with. JJ Bellmare says Trump and the GOP's attitude about elections. When they win fair and square. When they lose, the other guy cheated, illegal immigrants voted, etc. So that's why the mainstream media drives me crazy. You can't call that stuff 50-50, right? So anyway, and so look, they know that Donald Trump lied about 3 to 5 million illegal immigrants voting in the 2016 election. What a preposterous, insane lie, right? But after it doesn't matter anymore, a newly reinvigorated press will sometimes call him out on it, right? But when it matters, they're so afraid. But Rick Scott, look here, I'll read you this and then I'll finish the point. On Twitter, Oz Perspective wrote in, Rick Scott wants to talk about a documented history of fraud. Talk about stones and glass houses. Rick Scott oversaw the largest Medicare fraud in US history when he was CEO of Columbia/HCA.
That's right.
That's a fact. He was the CEO of a company convicted for the largest Medicare fraud in US history at the time, okay? So billions of dollars in fraud conducted by Rick Scott. He was the CEO. He wasn't the treasurer, he wasn't an accountant, he wasn't the assistant, he ran the company, okay? So this guy who was a proven liar committed a giant scale fraud with clear and obvious lies in that press conference. And the press will go, well, Rick Scott says this, that's the big headline. Rick Scott says voter fraud, annoying. Right? And in the paragraph 13, they won't mention the largest Medicare fraud in history. They'll say, well, he sent his own guys in and his own guys said there wasn't any fraud, but sorry, paragraph 13. No, the headline should be, Rick Scott contradicts his own monitors who say there is no election fraud. That's the correct headline. That gives you the proper context for what actually happened there.
Do you remember when he was pushing to get all government program recipients drug tested to prove that they weren't on drugs? It wasn't because he thought that they were all doing drugs. It was because he was making money because the company that was conducting those drug tests was a company that he was invested in. Well,
TYT Investigates just broke this story about how he took money during the 2016 election for Trump super PAC and then gave $200 million in Florida pension funds to the guy who contributed about $1.5 million to Rick Scott's super PAC for Donald Trump. The guy's, his whole career is based on corruption. But do you get that from the press, national press or Florida press? No, we mentioned it once in the story in the Miami Herald on page 827, and then we moved on with our lives. No, you have to say it every time, understand who this guy is. So, all right, I can go on. Last one from this time from YouTube Super Chat. Matteo Luciano writes in, if the DNC allows Hillary 2020, then that's the end of the DNC. So yes, that is a rumor going around today. That is not who we were talking about, who announced their candidacy for 2020 today. We'll get to that story later. And yes, it is mental, Hillary Clinton running. She's not necessarily running, but it is possible apparently. All right, now real quick, I mentioned to you guys, we've got not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5 TYT specials coming up in the next 2 months, okay? So be on the left side of history. We're gonna all programming for you guys, extra programming. There'll be one that is for members only, so tyt.com/join to become a member.
Or tyt.com/Anna to be a member with 1 N.
Okay.
Lots of fun.
It's okay, they can misspell it. We got those URLs.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, so you could join through one of the host names as well. We're having a fun little competition. Marijuana is not representing just the lizard, but a lot of the staff. So keep that in mind, and they are moving up. That's the placeholder for a lot of our staff. But Jimmy's on there and rising now. Ben's got 1 person, but he's actively disdainful of these kind of competitions, so that makes sense. Anyway, obviously, tyt.com/jank is the correct way of doing it. And then now we've got a recount in the poll that we were doing, tyt.com/poll. We're asking you guys to decide which our next shirt is gonna be on shoptyt.com. And Anna was out front, but there has been a late surge in voting for Bernie Kenobi.
All right.
Okay. And so it is now leading. We're gonna close this poll at the end of the show today. So you have an hour and a half left. I need you to panic. So go and vote on whichever design you like, and that'll be the next TYT shirt at shoptyt.com. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. The FBI is investigating a possibly alleged criminal organization that Matt Whitaker was part of. Now, Matt Whitaker is unfortunately overseeing the FBI as acting attorney general and should recuse himself when it comes to the investigation of the company that he was involved in, World Patent Marketing. But since he refuses to recuse himself from the Russia investigation, and since we're now dealing with an executive branch that flaunts its potential criminal behavior right in front of our eyes, who knows what the future holds? But let me give you the details on what the FBI is looking into. The Bureau is investigating or conducting a criminal investigation of a Florida company accused of scamming millions of customers during the period that Matthew Whitaker, the acting US Attorney General, served as a paid advisory board member. So what did this company do? Well, World Patent Marketing, based in Miami Beach, shut down last year after being accused by the FTC of scamming customers out of $26 million. The company charged would-be inventors thousands of dollars to patent and promote their inventions, but actually provided almost no real services and threatened those who complained. So one of those people who threatened inventors if they complained was Matthew Whitaker. In fact, acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker has said that he's not aware of any fraudulent activity. However, apparently he used his position of power to basically go after people who threatened to press charges against him. And yeah, so acting Attorney General said that he was going to go after people if they said that they were gonna complain.
Okay, yeah. So let me explain a little bit further. So he was an advisory board member of the company, and he was paid to do that. And it's funny how cheap you could buy politicians. But remember, no one knew Matthew Whitaker at the time. He was just a U.S. attorney in Iowa. He was part of the group that the Bush administration put pressure on to politicize the U.S. attorney's office, and he did. He was one of the ones that participated in that politicization. I'm sure you're very surprised by that at this point. And so he gets out of that office and he gets paid. You know how much he got paid? $9,375. That's it. You can buy these guys pretty cheap. And but what he did was the worst part of it. So there's 2 parts that are particularly hideous. He's the guy who would write the letter saying that there's a 2015 email that the authorities have on the company's behalf to unhappy customers, citing his background as a former US attorney and threatening the customer with, quote, serious civil and criminal consequences if they complain. And you understand what happens? They have an invention, they go to the company says, oh, I'm gonna patent it and I'm gonna promote it. They don't do any of that. Then the guy goes, wait, what happened to my invention? They hired Matthew Whitaker as an advisory board member to specifically threaten these people. How dare you ask for your invention, okay? And that you ask us to do the services that we provided. We could arrest you for that. And the guy's a former US attorney, scares the bejesus out of people. What a goon. What, I mean, these guys have, and all for $9,375. So now the second galling part is, they're caught, they pay $26 million in fines because they did it, and they should pay that to the FTC. Now the FBI is investigating criminal action. So the civil action is clear, it's already done, they already paid the $26 million fine. Now there's a criminal investigation. Well, you're now in charge of the FBI. Of course you have to recuse yourself. If the FBI was looking into whether you robbed a bank and you said, well, no, I'm gonna decide whether I robbed a bank or not. No, you don't get to decide that. But the galling part is, even before we got to that, since they paid the $26 million fine, a lot of people who are on their advisory board gave back the fee. They're like, whoa, I don't want to be associated with that. No, I'll give back the fee so that you could pay back the people who were defrauded, right? Not Whitaker. Whitaker refused to give it back. Goon through and through, total thug. Take an important office like the US Attorney's Office, use it for his own personal profit to threaten other people unjustly. When he's caught with his hand in the cookie jar, won't give the cookie back to the people who were already defrauded. That's who Matthew Whitaker is. And now they're like, well, I mean, FBI is investigating you, the company that you were part of, you were an advisory board member for. Nope, not gonna recuse myself. Well, see, that's what Donald Trump hired him for. He didn't hire him to do investigations, he hired him to stop investigations.
There are not many, but I'm seeing some commentary from the left regarding how some people have covered the firing of Jeff Sessions and how, look, we should be celebrating right now. Jeff Sessions is a hideous person, terrible guy. It's great that he's no longer the attorney general. But I feel like people should have learned this very important lesson by now. Nothing good ever comes out of the Trump administration, period. Even when you think there's the potential of something good happening, he always delivers a blow to people on the left, progressives, anybody who believes in the rule of law. Of course he's gonna replace Jeff Sessions with someone who's actually somehow miraculously worse than Jeff Sessions. Because this acting attorney general, Whitaker, he has a background in saying racist, xenophobic things as well. But he adds that extra layer of criminality, potential criminality. And he, again, refuses to recuse himself in the Russia investigation. He should be recusing himself here when it comes to the FBI investigating, the company that he was involved in. But who knows what he's gonna do? I mean, the Trump administration floods the news cycle with so much crap that it's so easy to move on to the next drama, the next tragedy, the next whatever Trump is involved in.
Look, guys, I got to clarify something that's really important based on what Anna said. So that argument of, well, I mean, Mike Pence would be just as bad. He might be even more. No, stop it. You're not getting it, okay? Mike Pence is a terrible guy. We all agree to that. And could he be slightly more effective on policy than Donald Trump? Sure, whatever, maybe, but maybe not, by the way, because Donald Trump at least can empower his base to get action done. Mike Pence couldn't empower his own wife or his own family members. I don't mean to pick on his wife; she's more powerful than he is. But that's not the point, guys. It's rule of law. Mike Pence is a person within the sphere of democracy, and so. Maybe like other Republicans, he might cheat around the edges. Donald Trump doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care at all. I mean, he says, oh, maybe we should redo this Arizona election because we're losing. Well, the ones that we're winning in Florida, stop the counting. He would destroy democracy in a second, and he's actively trying to do it now. Wake up. This isn't like, oh, who's more conservative? Whose policies don't we agree with more? No, the guy's an absolute mortal threat to democracy. If you don't understand that, I can't help you. No, any Republican in that light is infinitely better than this thug wannabe dictator, Donald Trump. How could you not understand that?
Moving on to the state of California, where tragedy continues to unfold. Multiple fires in the state of California have claimed the lives of dozens of people. In fact, there have been 3 major fires: the Camp Fire, Woolsey Fire, and Hill Fire. And 31 people have already been reported dead, and more than 200 individuals are missing. This has been a completely tragic weekend in the state of California, and one of the bigger fires, Woolsey, is nowhere near contained. The Camp Fire in Butte County is actually considered to be the most destructive wildfire in California history, tearing through 100,000 acres and killing 29 people and destroying more than 6,700 structures thus far. And when it comes to the Woolsey and Hill fires in Southern California, they've burned more than 85,000 acres, including in the town of Malibu, and claimed at least 2 lives and forced the evacuation of more than 250,000 people. So what would a leader, a real leader, do in this case? Offer support, funding, do whatever he or she can to help out the firefighters in the state, but not Trump. Trump makes everything political, and since the state of California has not been supportive of the president or his ridiculous policies, he decided to take to Twitter, as people are dying, by the way, to say the following: there's no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California, except that forest management is so poor. Billions of dollars are given each year with so many lives lost, all because of gross mismanagement of the forests. Remedy now or no more Fed payments. First of all, that type of tweet, even if it were true, is a hideous thing to put out there, especially while people are dealing with the devastation of these fires, the loss of lives, the loss of homes, properties. But nothing he wrote there was even true, because guess who manages the forests in the state of California? The federal government, not the state, the federal government. So I'm gonna give you more details on that in just a minute, but first I want you to hear from actual firefighters in the state. Now, the California Professional Firefighters President, Brian Rice, was on MSNBC, and here's what he had to say in response to Trump's tweet.
In the statement that the president made, it was ill-timed. The loss of life, I'm very concerned. In Paradise, there's over 228 people missing. I think they've confirmed right now 28 dead. I've heard the number at 31 today. They have forensic teams, at least 10 of them in the area looking. I've been in the town of Paradise. It is a ghost town.
So this is also what frustrates me about the media, and I'll tell you why. So people pointed out that it was an insensitive thing to do, to send that tweet as the firefighters are going in, and the firefighters have, as you partly saw there, have been very, very clear. The International Association of Firefighters president called it reckless and insulting. California professional firefighters said it was ill-informed, ill-timed, and demeaning, and it goes on and on. But what's frustrating to me is that I read a lot of these headlines over the weekend, and I didn't have a chance to dive into it until today before the show. And I didn't get a sense of what the reality was until I read well into my 3rd article. Oh, California doesn't run the forest in California, the federal government does, the overwhelming majority of it. By the way, the 1/3 is also owned by private interests. So the percentage run by the state of California is incredibly low. So the correct headline should have been, Donald Trump insults himself by saying that it's been terrible forest management.
That would be an accurate headline, that would be a powerful headline, but the reporters don't want to do it. Going back to your point, that you've repeated multiple times on the show, they're so afraid of the crybaby Republicans and Trump supporters who think somehow that the media is against them because they have the audacity to report the truth about what's really going on. And so 60% of the forests in the state of California are managed by the federal government, and then 1/3 of the forests are being managed by private interests, as Cenk correctly mentioned. But is that really the heart of what's going on with these wildfires in the state of California? No, of course not. We all know it. Trump knows it. What's really going on is that we've had record high temperatures, record droughts in the state of California. We're dealing with, a lack of FEMA funding. That's another issue here, but that's to deal with, the devastation after the fact. The real problem is climate change, okay? So if he wants to make it political, let's make it political. We're having higher temperatures, drier weather, and record droughts. That is exacerbating the issue of wildfires in the state of California. But do you think Trump cares? Do you think that his corporate buddies care? No, there's profit to be made. There's money to be made. We got to make sure that we protect the fossil fuel industry and do absolutely nothing about climate change.
So, look, all of it is frustrating. So then on Saturday, because he got a lot of heat, he came out and was like, "Oh yeah, sure. Our hearts are with those affected by the fires." I'm not even convinced he wrote that part of it, but this part I am convinced he wrote. He then couldn't help himself, so he added, "With proper forest management, we can stop the devastation constantly going on in California. Get smart." But no, you manage the forest in California. You get smart, you idiot, you stupid dumbass. You're going around saying, "Oh, forest management's a real problem." You manage the forest in California. You do, you dumbass. How much clearer do I have to be than this? And he's like, "Oh no, you gotta get smart, California, in managing the forest." God, and everybody who's a supporter of Donald Trump, you're so deeply embarrassing. This moron that didn't check after the first tweet, he didn't check after the second tweet, that it's actually his job to manage the forest. Nope, didn't bother to check. And then he writes at the end, "Get smart." And imagine if a Democratic president, while firefighters were risking their lives, blamed the firefighters. Well, okay, what would Fox News say? "How dare he," right? When Trump does it, "Oh, bravo, it was probably the firefighters' fault, the forest management's fault." Well, the forest management that isn't the state of California's, but who cares? It's a blue state, they didn't vote for us, let them die. That's basically what he's telling you.
Do you know how many firefighters support the Republican Party in the state of California?
Yeah.
I really hope they rethink their political identity after the president of the United States, a Republican, place the blame on them as they're risking their lives to save Californians from these fires. There are more than 200 people missing right now in the state because of these fires. There were people found charred in their cars, charred in their homes. And this clown thinks that it's a good idea to go on Twitter and make it political because the people of California aren't brain dead enough to support him as a state.
So 31 dead, 228 missing. And he tells the firefighters, "Go risk your lives, and after you come out of the fire, if you're still alive, I'm gonna cut your funding." That's who Donald Trump is. He's a monster through and through. That's why these conversations about, "Oh, would Mike Pence be better or worse?" It shows a real lack of understanding of what's happening in this country to even say that. Come on, man, Jesus Christ.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, more news for you. I don't know what's coming up next.
Yeah, no, look. If you thought that was bad, and it is, it's terrible. Him not attending any of the veterans events. God, man, his voters are such suckers. They're such suckers. All right, I'll break it down for you when we come back. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Let me read some member comments. By the way, if you're thinking of joining up as a member, now I'm coming. At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired Magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today. We're behind to John Idarola. Jesus Christ. How much humiliation could a man stand? Just playing. Anyway, tyt.com/jank. That's the way to join up. So I'm nowhere near Anna. I got to now catch John. Jesus, man. All right, help a brother out. All right, Mermaid M writes in from the member section. Same lies he told after Hurricane Maria. Blamed Puerto Rico for their mismanagement of funds and being in debt. As long as you didn't vote for him, all he's going to do is insult you. Gabby Marita says, I yearn for a future in which the Twitter account of a 72-year-old man-child is not the foremost driver of public discourse and cable news coverage. From your mouth to God's ears. Turkosaurus Rex says, natural disasters don't matter if they happen in blue states. Remember that monster Ted Cruz who voted against Superstorm Sandy relief? And then when the hurricane hit Texas, he's like, we need help right away. Oh, what happened, Ted? Joy writes, and the fact that FEMA is doing nothing about the fires tells you everything you need to know about the Trump administration. In fact, funds are being moved for detention centers, as we'll tell you about in a little bit. The Radford Review says gross mismanagement. I wonder whether Trump will say when he's told it's his fault. And then he says bad Trump impersonation. Totally wasn't my fault. Many people are telling me it's all California, except I did a good one, so it's okay. All right, and that's it. Now let's move on to the next story that is maddening.
Okay.
It was a weird transition.
Yeah, it was. I'm like, Donald Trump claims that he really cares about veterans. In fact, he cares about veterans so much that he will call black athletes sons of bitches if they refuse to stand during the national anthem. But his love for veterans stops there because on Veterans Day, he refused to attend any of the events that presidents typically attend to honor our veterans. I'll give you some examples. So Trump won't visit the Arlington National Cemetery on Monday, today, as the country observes Veterans Day. Also, Trump made a number of blunders while he was in Paris, including canceling a visit to an American military cemetery near Paris because it was raining. The White House claimed that Trump canceled the visit because the Marine One helicopter cannot fly in the rain, which sounds like a lie.
Yeah, if that's true, we got bigger problems. What if terrorists attack and he's got to take off on Marine One? And they're like, ooh, it's a light drizzle out. Sorry, we're just gonna have to try to run for it. Really? Marine One helicopter cannot operate in the rain? How much money did we pay for that thing for it not to be able to operate in the rain? My guess is that that is an unbelievable brazen lie, as usual, by the Trump administration, that yes, Marine One helicopter is equipped to fly in a drizzle.
Also, one other thing that he did, instead of marking Veterans Day, Trump has instead been tweeting conspiracy theories, as he does, about the midterm elections, baselessly claiming that Democrats are forging ballots in Florida. Now, what's fascinating is that there are ballots coming in from overseas, members of the military who are overseas fighting our wars that we shouldn't be fighting, putting their lives at risk. And Trump seems to not want to count their votes. So another example of him not respecting our soldiers or our vets or our military. Again, he likes to use them as props when it's politically convenient for him. But when push comes to shove, he doesn't even want to attend events to honor our veterans.
Yeah, I mean, I think taking away their votes in Florida and saying that they're appearing out of nowhere. Well, first of all, if you knew anything about our democracy, you'd know where they're appearing from. They're appearing from largely our troops abroad. Second of all, if you respect the veterans, you'd care who they voted for. Don't you think veterans are going to vote for Republicans? Shouldn't you want to count their votes? No, you don't care about them. And by the way, they never cared about our troops. They have poverty wages to begin with. The average member of the military starts at around $19,000 for a yearly income, and most of them are when they're first coming in are on food stamps. And then they say support the troops. No, you mean support Lockheed Martin, the defense contractor that bribed you. That's what you mean. So let's be clear about that. Okay. And so, but to me, the one that sticks out the most in terms of symbolism is, it's raining outside. He went all the way to Paris to commemorate the 100th anniversary of our veterans dying in World War I, and he didn't bother to go because it was raining. Imagine if Obama didn't go to commemorate the 100th year anniversary of World War I to the cemetery of our veterans in Europe because it was raining.
You know, fair point about Obama, you're absolutely right. But to be fair, any of the previous presidents, right? Democrat or Republican, they would get criticized like crazy if they did that. But somehow, and I'm saying criticized by the very people who supported them and voted for them. But for some reason, when it comes to Trump, he can do whatever he wants. And his supporters still support him. I mean, he's shown us on numerous occasions that he doesn't care about our veterans. I mean, just remember what he said about John McCain, who was a prisoner of war, who refused to be released until his peers were released with him, who went through that type of torture. Look, I'm not saying this because I thought McCain was a great politician and I agreed with him on everything, but his actions as a prisoner of war were certainly heroic, and Trump said, I prefer people who weren't captured.
Yeah, I prefer people who actually went instead of making up lame excuses like Bone Spurs. So Commander Bone Spurs was afraid to go to Vietnam, and then he criticized people who did go to Nam. Then he said that avoiding STDs at the orgies he went to at the time was his own personal Vietnam. Now, instead of commemorating veterans, he says, well, I mean, it's raining. And maybe it makes sense because he's such a snowflake, he might melt in the rain. He won't even go out in the rain, let alone a rain of bullets. You know that he's gone the first 2 years without going to a single combat zone in the world. Now, almost all the presidents, when they're president, they go visit combat zones. And it's not like it's Fallujah in the middle of, when it was a complete uprising and he's landing heroically in the middle of that. He can go to a perfectly safe combat zone. He won't do it. You know why? For the same reason he ran from Vietnam while pretending to be in favor of war, because he's a coward through and through. That's why, we're showing you the videos, somebody's going on, Secret Service shows up because they're afraid somebody might come on stage. And he's like, oh, like panics like this. The eagle spreads his wings in his office. He's like, oh, like this. He's a scared little child. That's what he is. And then later when he was giving his speech on the second day, and there's World War II veterans that are under some covering, so they're not, and it's still raining. He's like, oh, they're over there while we're getting drenched. I think they earned it. I think they earned it when they defeated Hitler, right? But he has no sense of propriety, he has no sense of decency. And if you're one of his cult followers who follows him, you're pathetic. I mean, remember what he did with the veterans during the campaign? He was such a child, so afraid of Megyn Kelly that he wouldn't show up to a debate that she was moderating. He's like, oh, I'm gonna do my own thing, and I'm gonna do it for veterans, right? And he's like, oh, if all the cameras should come to me instead. So they go do this big circus, and then he didn't give the money to the veterans.
Yeah, he raised money for veterans and then did not give that money to veterans until the media actually did its job and investigated it and found that he was holding on to the money. And then he donated some money to veterans.
And then he, a usual Donald Trump lie, he said, oh yeah, I had given it already. But the check says the day after the article that said you hadn't given it. So what do you mean you'd given it already? It's a fact that you hadn't given it already.
Oh, he's so sad.
Okay, he's such a pathetic little liar. And look at his, I'm not going to see the veterans. Daddy, it's raining outside. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to go. I don't want to go to Vietnam, Daddy. Why don't you get a doctor to write a little thing about bone spurs?
No, I did go to those memorials. Okay, I went very strongly.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to pretend that he actually went to Vietnam. Look, he's idiot.
My appearance was very strong.
Yeah.
It was very tremendous. The media is lying. Yeah. There's no video evidence of it. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary, but I went and it was strong.
Yeah. No, look, his idiot cult followers would probably believe him if he said, oh yeah, I went to Vietnam. killed 28 guys. He's a hero, saved 13 people. Oh, I had a very strong appearance in Vietnam. Wait for it. I mean, now, like, there's no lie big enough for his followers to abandon him.
That's totally true.
So he's probably thinks, oh yeah, I was also at World War II and World War I. Remember when they brought the Korean soldiers' remains back? Good, wonderful, easy to give him credit. Like if he does something right, yeah, I'll give him credit, why not? He came out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, rejected it, great, fantastic. I don't wanna be in that trade agreement, right? So it's an easy win, just shush, just shut up, okay? Take the win and go home. Nope, he can't do it. He's like, oh, it's the family members were thanking me for bringing them back. The parents, he said, the parents asked me to bring it back. The parents, on average, would be 108 years old now, of the people who died in the Korean War.
Yeah.
Like, just do some math. You're such an idiot. You're such an imbecile. Like, oh yeah, the parents called me up and said they want those remains back, and I got it back for them. They're not alive. They're not alive. Okay. Oh no, the Revolutionary War parents called me, and they said, great job in crossing the Delaware. That's why I'm polling higher than George Washington. He literally said he polled higher than Abraham Lincoln. There was no polls during Abraham Lincoln.
Oh my God. Okay. Let's do the break. All right, let's do the break. And then when we come back, I'm gonna tell you how many people ICE has arrested and detained and how much money is being taken out of services that we desperately need just to house undocumented immigrants.
And if you like my Trump accent, tyt.com/Jen.
Anna.
Okay, you're unbearable. And sign up, you can get it anytime you want. You can replay it anytime you want. tyt.com/Jen, go to the break, go to the break.
All right, fine.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.